Hello class. Today we're going to talk about simple interest. So the first thing we need to do is define the word interest. Interest is the amount of extra money you gain or lose on money invested or borrowed. So anywhere you see the dollar signs, that's just referring to money. Okay, so interest is an extra amount. Okay, so today we're going to learn about some vocabulary words. We're going to learn about principal. We're going to learn about an interest rate. We're going to learn about a time or a term and the word interest. So this is our first part, interest. It is the amount above what we start off with. When you invest money, the bank is borrowing your money, and it will in turn pay you with interest. When you borrow money from the bank, they will make you pay back that amount plus interest. So simple interest is just one way to calculate interest on things. This is our simple interest formula. It is the same every single time. And this is our formula. I is equal to PRT, where the I stands for interest. That's the amount above or beyond what you originally invest or borrow. The P is going to stand for principal, which is that original amount that you borrowed or invested. So whatever you start off with, that's called the principal. The interest rate. Okay, the interest rate when you're given a problem is always going to come to you in the form of a percentage. So we've got to take that percent and convert it to a decimal. And we know that in order to do that, all you do is move the decimal 2 places to the left and take the decimal or take the percent sign off. And then time has to be in years. So sometimes they will give you the time in months, such as, 6 months. Well, 6 months would represent half a year, so you would put it as 0.5. Or 18 months. Well, 18 months, if you divide that by 12, you find out that it's 1.5 years, or 1.5. So your time has to be written in years. So let's do a couple of questions real fast. Let's move on down to this question right here. Okay, so here's the problem that I want us to look at. We've got $28,000 that we're either borrowing or investing, makes no difference which one, at 7.9% interest for 3 years. Okay, so in this particular question, we're looking for interest. If you notice down here at the bottom, it says, what is interest? And so that's what we're looking for. So this is the missing value. What is interest? So that $28,000, though, is going to be our principal amount. That's the amount that I'm going to start with. Okay, our 7.9% is going to be our interest rate. So I find the decimal, I move the decimal over 2 places, and in my math problem, I'm going to write it as 0.079. Okay, because that's the usable format for our calculator. And then our time in this particular instance is 3 years. So once you do that, once you write all that stuff down, you then type it into your calculator. Now I'm using a slightly different calculator than what we've used in class. This kind of shows you that you can use any calculator for this. Okay, so you type in 28,000 times 0.079 times 3, hit enter, and you end up with $6,636 for interest. Now because it is money, the label that we're going to put on it is a dollar sign. Now, this particular question asks us for one additional thing. It says, what is the total amount that you're going to have to pay back? So if you borrowed $28,000, the bank is going to expect you to pay that $28,000 back, plus what we call interest, because they charge you a fee, basically, for using their money, okay? And that fee is called interest. So in order to find the total amount, you're going to take that $28,000, which was the original amount, and you're going to add to that the amount of interest that we have accumulated. This term right here is called balance. That is the balance of the account, or the balance that is due. So in order to find that, you add those two numbers together. And you find out that the total amount that you're going to have to pay back for this loan is $34,636. And that's how you use the simple interest formula. It is just that easy. So let's do one more real quick, and then we'll look at some changes that may take place, some things that could happen. Okay, so in this one right here, we're doing the same thing. Again, it's asking what is interest. So interest is what's missing. Okay, so my $34,100 in this problem is going to go for our principal amount. There's a 4% interest rate, so you're going to find the decimal, which is right behind the 4, move the decimal over 2 places. So in the problem, I'm going to write it as 0.04, and our time is 3 years. So again, we'll type this into our calculator. 0.04 times 3, and you end up with $4,092 for interest. Now, if I wanted to know what's the total amount, I'm going to then add the 34,100 and the 4,092 together to get a total of $38,192 that I would have to pay back. Okay, so that is our simple standard problem where you're looking for interest. Okay, so what if interest is not the thing that's missing? Well, in a simple interest format, you've got 4 variables, and you can plug in anything into those. Okay, so you're going to know 3 of them, and you're going to be looking for the 4th one. And there's always a 5th thing that they can ask you questions about, and that's balance. So in this one right here, it says, if you earned $480 in interest on a $4,000 investment at a 3% interest rate, how long have you had the investment? So in this one, if you'll notice, it says you've got $480 in interest. So that is our I amount. Okay, so you plug it into the I spot. The original amount, the $4,000 investment, is going to be our principal. Okay, so if I asked you what is the balance of this account, the balance would actually be the principal and the interest combined, which is $4,480. Okay, so that's how much is actually in the account after the time frame, whatever that happens to be. Okay, and we've got an interest rate of 3%, so I'm going to convert that to a decimal. And what I don't know is I don't know my time. So what we can do in a problem like this to solve for t is a very simple process. We use some of our algebra that we've learned. So this 480, it's perfectly fine right there by itself. But over here on the right-hand side, I've got 2 numbers, the principal and the rate, that I can actually put together. Okay, so I'm going to do that. 4,000 times 0.03. You end up with 120. So if there's anything that I can put together, like I've taught you in the past, you put it together before we start solving. So we end up with 120. And then you just place the letter that I'm looking for right there beside it, the t. Now this is an equation. Okay, so how do I get that t by itself? I have a multiply by 120. So in order to get rid of that, I do a divide by 120. And you end up with t is equal to, and when you do 480 divided by 120, you get 4 as an answer. Now, what am I looking for here? This 4 is actually years, because it's asking how long have you had the investment. So that's the other type of problem that you will have dealing with simple interest, is they will ask you for questions other than just interest. And so that's what we've got to be able to do. Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll be ready to call it. It says if you borrowed $14,000 9 years ago and paid $7,560 in interest payments, what was the interest rate on the loan? So on a problem like this, it says you borrowed $14,000. So that $14,000 is the original amount. So that is my principal. It was 9 years ago, so that's our time frame. And we paid $7,560 in interest payments. So that becomes my interest. So what is the interest rate? So this is what's missing. So what I taught you on the last problem is the interest. You just write it down again, because the left-hand side is good. So on the right-hand side, though, I can take this principal and this time, and I can put those together. And you end up with $126,000 R. Now I'm looking for an interest rate. Okay, so how do I get that R by itself? I divide by 126,000. And I end up with R is equal to, well, if we type this in, 0.06. Now, I'm looking for an interest rate. That's a decimal. That's not a percentage. An interest rate is always going to come to me in the form of a percentage. So if I'm looking for an interest rate, I need to take that decimal and convert it back to a percent. So we move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percent sign on it. So what was the interest rate? 6%. And that's how we solve interest problems. It's just that simple. So what we need to understand about interest is that it's a simple formula. I is equal to PRT. And all you're doing is plugging in what I know and solving for what I don't know. The only other piece that is missing in this one is that idea of balance. Balance is always equal to the principal plus the interest combined. So if the question asks for how much is in the account or how much is the total amount that you've got to pay, okay, we're talking about a balance, and that's going to be principal plus interest. So that's all there is to simple interest. So until next time, I'll see you later.